drags President Mahama to the Supreme Court seeking an order to declare as unconstitutional processes in motion to remove the Chief Justice Gertrude Tokonu.
Also to come, Parliament to resume the approval and appropriation of budget estimates for various ministries after a marathon session which saw a number of tax handles scrapped and others reviewed upwards.
Plus, doctors at the Komfanochi Teaching Hospital threatened to suspend surgical procedures at the Central Hospital due to an acute water shortage problem.
Hello there, it's good to see you here. I'm Kameni Amano and this is News Central.
And I am Mawena Igbeta. The bulletin starts right now.
In our first story, we'll take you by the numbers. We put the Electricity Company of Ghana under scrutiny. The ECG, or Electricity Company of Ghana, has become a focal point of financial mismanagement, procurement breaches, and operational inefficiencies. From massive revenue under declarations to mounting losses, ECG's challenges raise serious concerns about accountability and the sustainability of Ghana's power sector. And that's why I want to have a conversation, particularly on the back of some missing containers belonging to the Electricity Company of Ghana. Remember that we had reported that over 1,000 containers belonging to the power retailer, could not be traced at the Tema port. And in a bit, we'll show you all the numbers. But let's connect with the Minister for Energy and Green Transition, John Abdullahi Jinapo, who's joining us from his offices here in Accra. Honorable, good afternoon to you. I appreciate your patience on waiting for us. But let's look at the report that you received from the committee that investigated ECG's activities. How damaging is this report?
Quite damaging. Very, very important. If you read the report, you get very, very worried. Over the years, ECG could do all this, and so far, we have already given some instructions. For instance, the decision to merge the procurement directorate with the estate unit, we've directed that should be reversed. We should have a standalone procurement directorate with the qualified approved provisions. In 2024 alone, they procured more than 700% what had been approved to them by the board. More importantly, we've asked that they give us some periodic updates in terms of their essential goods and services that they procure. A lot of the containers that we found stuck at the port, the items, they did not need them immediately. Some containers arrived, they had items, they claimed that they couldn't clear the containers, but they were still awarding contracts for similar items. All top, and then we'll keep monitoring them. But the most important one has to do with the whereabouts of those containers.
Indeed.
The briefing I got this morning, and let me comment the National Security Operatives and the law enforcement agencies. The information I got this morning is that already they've traced about 40 of them to a particular terminal or warehouse in Pung, which belongs to an Indian man of extraction. And they've confiscated all the 40 containers, and they are moving them to a secured location. The man indicates that those containers were sold to him last year, and so that's a subject of a matter of investigation, and the law enforcement agencies would ensure that the law takes its course. There are also reports of some other areas that they are picking intelligence. They will trace all of them, retrieve all the containers as soon as possible, and put the perpetrators before the courts of competent jurisdiction. Let me just sound that when we start prosecuting these people, let nobody come to say we are witch hunting. These are properties of the states. Every legitimate and legal means to ensure that we retrieve them and to hold all those behind these acts to account. And so we'll continue to work hard and ensure that we retrieve all these containers.
In tracing these 40 containers, have any arrests been made yet?
Yes, the national operatives have already picked up this Indian in connection with this.
Well, it appears we have.
And like I said, I'm not even interested in the politics. I have no interest in the politics. My main interest is to retrieve this and put them to good use.
Well, Honorable, it would appear we're having difficulty connecting with you over the internet, but would restore that connection and bring back the rest of our conversation. But Honorable, we lost you when you were telling us about the arrest made. Could you go over that?
Yes, I'm saying that one person, an Indian man of extraction, has been picked up by the national security. 40 containers have been intercepted. He claims that they were sold to him last year. The investigation would continue. We want to secure the containers first. And at the right time, we'll go with the media to take a look at the containers. The law will take its course. I am not interested in the politics, and let me be clear about that. My interest has to do with the containers. This, for me, has nothing to do with the political party. When containers are stolen, we have to ensure that the law takes its course, and that's exactly what we are doing.
I see. Now, Honorable, I mean, these 40 are part of the over nearly 1,300 that are missing, or part of the remaining of the 2,500 stuck at the Tema port?
We suspect that these are part of the 1,300 that are missing. The remaining ones are at the port, and national security is helping us to secure them as well. Now, our interest is to also secure or trace the whereabouts of the 1,300 containers. And then we can make sure that we get the over 1,300 containers, account for them, and put them to good use. What I want is simple. We want all the containers accounted for and secured.
I see. So when will ECG clear the remaining 1,200 containers?
National Security is helping us. We want to move them to a secured location. We have a warehouse. They will provide security. Just that we want to go through a rigorous process by taking serial numbers and everything. Let me also thank the Director General of the Ghana Posts, General Tanya. He's been very, very cooperative. He's doing a fantastic job, providing us with all the information we need. There's always a manifest, so we can trace these containers. It's just a matter of time where we would get to know exactly where those containers landed. And whoever is responsible, whoever, and let me make this clear, whoever, irrespective of your political affiliation, your tribe, your position, the law will take its course.
I see. Now, Honorable, just before we let you go, a lot of people have been asking for explanation as to why their power keeps going off. Which one can you offer? Which explanation can you offer? Well, it would appear that we are not able to connect with Honorable on that question.
Hello.
About. Yeah, Honorable, if you can hear me, I'm asking what explanation can you offer the Ghanaian people as to why they experience power outages, especially in recent times?
Yes, the problem we had to do with the Kumasi enclave, where the power situation was quite alarming. And it was because we were changing a particular bulk supply point in terms of the bulk transformer. But as I speak to you, that has been done. And so we shouldn't see any major problem. The remaining one has to do with the localized issues in terms of the distribution end. And some of these things contribute to that. Because if you have 2,500 or so containers stuck at the port, it means that you needed them in order to inject into the system. And so if from 2002, 2003, 2004 to date, all these containers are stuck at the port, certainly it will impact the grid, it will impact the distribution network. And so that is why I'm even determined to ensure that we get all these containers and inject this equipment into the system in order to stabilize the system. Fortunately, we have enough generation as I speak. And so if there are any localized outages, we need to rectify that immediately. I've asked that the system is set up so that we can quickly deal with these challenges. And I am hopeful and very confident that the system will continue to improve as we move on. This is what we inherited. We've just been in office under 3 months, but we have to work very hard in order to ensure that we deal with the situation. And also, the complaint systems, it's not everything that I would see. So we are beefing up the system so that when a particular area goes off, ECG can be notified immediately and then they can move in swiftly and deal with it.
Very well, Honorable. Thank you so much for joining us this afternoon. Well, that was the Energy and Green Transition Minister, Dr. John Abdullahi Jinapor. But there'll be more on this because Mawena is looking at the issue concerning ECG by the numbers.
And we're getting straight into it with respect to ECG, and we just had the minister detail in some quite extent what the problem has been and the work that's been undertaken thus far. But these are the top state entities currently which bring in quite a lot of losses with respect to their operations. The Electricity Company of Ghana, which has been the subject of conversation, leading the chart, 47.2 billion cedis, and that cocoa board follows. But let's try and get into the details in relation to ECG and what really the numbers have been since 2021, where since 2021 up until the 2023 financial year, there's been 18 billion cedis in losses from the Electricity Company of Ghana alone. Now, in walking you through really what the challenges have been, here's what we know, and of which we've been seeking to get responses from the minister, where he's been providing details of 1,328 plus containers gone missing at the port. Well, we're getting updates that 40 have been tracked, and there's been some arrests made, which the minister has been telling us about. But all of this is costing the Ghanaian taxpayer 1.5 billion cedis with respect to the monies accruing in failing to clear about 2,500 containers from the ports. Now, walking you again through what the issues have been for the Electricity Company of Ghana again, we know as well that there's been over 348 million cedis in monies not paid to 6 independent power producers, of which the West African gas pipeline as well constitutes a part of. Then there's been a 5.3 billion cedis in revenue under-declared for the year 2024, which was captured in that audit done by PwC with respect to the revenue of ECG, which amongst many other things highlighted as much as 80 plus accounts being run by the Electricity Company of Ghana. They've been directed by the Energy Minister, who we heard from a short while ago, to operate a single account for the collection of all of their revenue. Then we know as well well with respect to the troubles of the Electricity Company of Ghana, that over 490 million cedis in discrepancy in revenue collection was discovered in 2023. Then there's 136 million cedis as well worth of emergency bought without authorization. That has to do with fuel as well. And then 14 CSOs filed a lawsuit against the Electricity Company of Ghana due to procurement breaches, and that as well has been the subject of recommendation by this new administration. Now, of the many troubles as well in relation to the Electricity Company of Ghana, between 2016 and 2021, ECG awarded 50 contracts worth $145 million for 862,750 meters and accessories, violating the procurement process along the way. And so these and more have been really the challenges in relation to the Electricity Company of Ghana. But President Mahama has been speaking with regards what the way forward is with his government and then the Electricity Company of Ghana. Let's take a listen to him.
The China shop is Electricity Company of Ghana, the sick man of the power sector. I mean, you can't run an electricity utility and make 40% commercial and technical losses and continue to think that you have a viable business. That's why I've said that we are looking at introducing private sector participation. Even as irregular as PDS was and as inefficient as it was, I mean, when PDS came, you could see an increase in the revenue that was being collected. And so we're willing to take the bull by the horns and reform that sector of it, and also reform the governance in ECG so that it's running more efficiently than it does currently.
Away from that, Otafo MP Echo Vincent Asifua is praying the Supreme Court to declare as unconstitutional ongoing processes to have the Chief Justice Gertrude Saki Tokonu removed from office. President Mahama has forwarded 3 separate petitions to the Council of State, kickstarting the constitutional process for the removal of the Justice of the Highest Court. But according to the NPP MP, the president's failure to notify the Chief Justice about the petitions violates the 1992 Constitution. Hence, the ongoing process must be declared null and void. Let's go into the details of the reliefs that the Member of Parliament is seeking from the Supreme Court. A declaration that upon a true and proper interpretation of Articles 146 and 296 of the 1992 Constitution, the President is mandated to notify the CJ about a petition for the removal and solicit comments from the Chief Justice. There's also the declaration that failure by the President to notify the CJ amounts to an unjustified interference with the independence of the judiciary. The writ also goes on to say that declaration that the failure by the President to notify the CJ constitutes a violation of the fundamental right to a fair hearing contained in Articles 23 and 296 and renders the consultation processes for the removal of the CJ initiated by the President null, void, and of no effect. Let's speak to former director of the Ghana School of Law, Kweku Ansasare. Lawyer, it's good to connect with you again. But when you look at the suit filed by the Otafo MP, is there a case to be interpreted by the Supreme Court in the first place yet?
Good afternoon.
Good afternoon, lawyer. Can you hear me?
Not at all.
Oh, okay, I'll try again. I'm asking whether or not the Otafo MP has a case for interpretation at all.
Whether or not what?
The Otafo MP who is now suing the president for violating the constitutional rights of the Chief Justice because, one, the petitions were not forwarded to the Chief Justice, and two, he thinks that is an interference of the independence of the judiciary, plus not, according the Chief Justice right to fair hearing. Talk to us about your thoughts on this.
Well, okay, thank you very much. You see, as a matter of procedure, the convention is that whenever a petition is submitted to a superior officer, let's say in this matter, the president, the first thing to do would be for the president to forward it to the person directly affected, in this matter, the Chief Justice, for the comments of the Chief Justice. And then that will trigger, the necessary action and further actions of the president. So in accordance with procedure, if that was not done, then there's a procedural lapse. But as to the second, the Constitution says that when the president sees the petition, he can only act in consultation with the Council of State. So there's nothing wrong for the president to refer the petition to the Council of State. But I think what we are seeing now is bordering on some executive interference, in the affairs of the judiciary. There are three distinct and separate branches of government. The three arms are the executive, the legislature, and the judiciary. I don't think that the executive will be happy when the legislature or the judiciary resorts to this type of, administrative machinery to remove the president or the Speaker of Parliament. When we come to this specific matter, we need to note that the incumbent Chief Justice, Getu Tokonu, is a justice of the Supreme Court first and foremost. He's a justice of the Supreme Court. And it requires of the president to act in accordance with the constitutionally laid down processes. Then secondly, under Article 146.6, where the petition concerns the Chief Justice, the president can only act in accordance with the procedure laid down and clearly spelled out in Article 146, 6, 7, 8, 9, and 10. Now, thirdly, may I repeat that the executive should not be seen to be seeking to remove a Chief Justice merely because the incumbent Chief Justice in this matter is not an NDC supporter or member of the NDC.
Very well.
Let us stop this politicking. You see, the Constitution has appointed a Chief Justice, or a Chief Justice has been appointed in accordance with the 1992 Constitution. The Chief Justice, once the person has been appointed to the office, the person sees it, even if the person were a known political figure of the NPP, the person sees it to be an NPP sympathizer. The person is Chief Justice of the Republic of Ghana, and therefore the executive has no hand in deciding to choose whether to work with the Chief Justice or not. That is beside the question. It's beside the point. Then next, we need to also observe that if the Chief Justice is removed under the Constitution, he cannot work again. He will retire on or should be made to retire on a salary. He cannot practice. He can't do any other job that requires professional training and the like. So we also need to factor this. But above all, I think that I can agree with those who are saying that the executive is interfering, with the machinery
of the judiciary
processes outlined in the Constitution. Let us, for one, not forget that we are dealing with Ghana. The president has no choice but to work with the incumbent Chief Justice. The president can only remove the Chief Justice in accordance with Article 146. If the former president and the current president seek to go in accordance with the Constitution, we shall be behind them.
Indeed, lawyer, I'm afraid we're out of time. We'll leave our conversation here for now. Thank you so much. Kweku Ansah is former head of the Ghana School of Law.
Let's take you away from there. And Member of Parliament for Asim North, James Gyakye, says he's unperturbed by delay in the ruling of his submission of no case after the court adjourned to April 9th. The High Court was set to decide on whether the prosecution had made a case for the legislator to open its defense or be discharged, but stood down after noting that the prosecution had filed additional disclosures on Wednesday. The Asin North MP has been charged with deceit of public office, forgery of passport or travel certificate, knowingly making a false statutory declaration, and perjury and false declaration for office. He's pleaded not guilty and remains on bail. Lord Edward, my colleague who was in court for us, has joined us via Zoom right now with details. Lord, talk to us as to what transpired in court today and why we've seen another adjournment.
Right, Marina. So when the case was called, Justice Mamiokia Yanzu noted that she had come into a document filed by the prosecution filing additional disclosures. Now, the lead counsel, as we are aware, Lawyer Chikata, indicated that really should not delay the court's ruling on his client's submission of no case because they've been at this for a while, 5 years and counting. So he indicated that, for example, the court first asked them to file their submissions as far back as December, and then later on they couldn't do that, and they had to forward it again to February, and eventually till March 3. But in all this circumstances, the prosecution refused to file their disclosures or any other documents that they would require. And then a day before the ruling on the submission of no case, they filed disclosures. We're making the point that it's a case of the prosecution simply wanting to drag the issue and then delay the court, and actually pray the court to just, sort of dismiss them and then go ahead with the ruling on the submission of no case. But the presiding judge in the matter noted that he had to take a look at the disclosures and then adjourn the ruling again to April 9 for, in that case, the MP for Asin North, James Gyakye, will get to know his face, whether he will walk or he will be asked to open the defense minor.
And these disclosures, what are they expected to do to the case? Because we know he's filed a submission of no case. There was the expectation that there will be a ruling on that. What does these additional disclosures that have been filed by the prosecution do to the case they have against him, even as he waits or he awaits this determination of no case application?
Well, it's hard to tell at this point, but at the last...
Okay, it does appear we cannot hear Lord Edward right now. Let's try and listen to James Gyakye, who spoke to journalists after the trial today.
A week ahead of us, right? We're all anticipating everything will come to an end today. My friends, family, everybody. We had this ongoing for too long, and everybody seems to be tired of it. So, there's a reason for everything that happens in life. So I'm still patient enough, but also still resilient to push through. Now, 5 years I've gone through this. A week will make no difference, right? So.
Right. Lord is back with us. Let's try one more time if we can hear him. Lord, you were seeking to explain what this latest disclosures as filed by prosecution does to the case, even as James Gyakye awaits the ruling on his no application. Well, it does appear there's a bit of a challenge in being able to hear from my colleague Lord Eduasara. And so that will take us on to our very first break here on News Central. When we return, we have a bit more stories for you, plus take you to the Ashanti region where there's a threat of some strike by doctors there. We'll have the details for you if you stay with us.
Welcome back. You're still live on News Central. Let's take you to Parliament now, because the House will continue to approve appropriation and budget estimates for various ministries today after a marathon session yesterday, which saw a number of tax handles scrapped and others reviewed upwards. The House yesterday successfully repealed the Electronic Transactions Levy, e-levy, the tax on all lottery winnings, bet tax, and the emissions levy, among others. Subsequently, the percentage on some tax handles were adjusted upwards. Let's bring you highlights of the decisions as taken yesterday by the House. So let's show you some of those taxes. For sure, we know that e-levy has been scrapped. We also know emissions levy has been scrapped. We also know that bet tax has been scrapped. But a few of them, as we have already reported, are going to see an upward adjustment. If we could take a look at that briefly. Well, I talked about the bet taxes already. Taxes on gaming and lotteries, 1.5% withholding tax on unprocessed gold. All those ones have gone. And then we know that the Revenue Administration Amendment Bill of 2025 is what is allowing us to be able to repeal these taxes and levies, and it's meant to reduce the percentage of total revenue set aside by the Finance Ministry into the Ghana Revenue General Refund account. The Value-Added Tax Amendment Bill 2025 will also exempt payment of tax on motor vehicle insurance. And then the Special Import Levy Bill 2025 amends existing law passed in 2013 to extend the period of implementing the law from 2026 to 2028. Now, this law was supposed to expire in 2025. We know that what they call the sunset clause was then extended to 2028. The minority in Parliament has said no. It should be brought, forward to 2026 instead of 2028. At the end, that bill also passed. There's also the Growth and Sustainability Levy Amendment Bill 2025, which seeks to raise levies imposed on gold mining companies other than companies and upstream oil and gas companies by 3%. So obviously, government is hoping to raise more revenue from there as well. Another one that the minority was not happy about because they thought that the private sector was being constricted a little bit with the upward adjustment of taxes. But we also know that it amends the Ghana Infrastructure Investment Fund Act 2014, Act 877, to remove the annual budget funding amount, the ABFA, as a source of funding for the GIIF. So it would appear that oil money will no longer be going into that. Earmarked Funds Capping and Realignment Amendment Bill 2025. It has expunged the MHIF, Get Fund, MIIF, GIIF, as well as transfers from GMPC from the petroleum revenue. Professor Lord Mensah is an economist joining us for a bit more on this. Prof, when you look at what came out of Parliament yesterday, the scrapping of these levies, the reduction of some taxes, as we have seen, like in the 1.5% on withholding taxes, for instance, and on the other hand, a slight adjustment in some of the taxes and uncapping of funding for some of these, agencies of government. What do you think the finance minister could be trying to do here?
At the earlier budgets we've been doing over the past years, it gives you the signal that there are budgets that spurs up growth, but then this growth are not inclusive. If you look at the adjustment and then the abolition of some of the taxes, clearly it tells you that finance minister wants to realign and adjust both the expenditure and then the revenue part of the budget to ensure that Ghana can get that growth that will be inclusive. And clearly, if you look at taking off the e-levy and then betting tax and all those, it gives you the signal that this is a minister who is looking at possibly making sure that the economy gets to the doorstep of the people. And you see, you can have an economy that is growing, but then that growth may not be inclusive as expected. And that is what Ghana has been witnessing over the years. And from where I sit, I'm happy, the finance minister, all the repealing of some of these taxes gave the signal and then also the means that he can use to fill in the gap that will be created by these revenue scraps. Mm-hmm. So it makes sense one way or the other to appreciate that he wants to make sure that at least the disposable income at the household level goes up. And from where I sit, being a financial economist, even for taxes, there are two ways that you can look at it. You can look at it in such a way that maybe a government may come and the government may need immediate funds. That is always making money available. In that case, that government tends to introduce so many tax handles and to ensure that they squeeze money from the people. On the other hand, another government may say that I can defer the taxes for now But then in the end, deferment of those taxes are not necessarily that the monies will be lost in the economy. But then deferment of the taxes can boost disposable income. And when it boosts disposable income, there are two ways you can split the disposable income. You can look at it from the savings perspective, and then you can also look at it from the consumption perspective. If it is savings perspective, then these taxes that are being deferred will be money available to the typical Ghanaian in the end.
So right, Prof, which one are we looking at for the 2025 budget? Are we looking at a savings?
I'm looking at a situation where I think the finance minister wants to boost consumption.
Right.
Right. And if it tends to boost consumption, then it improves some production in the economy. And once there's production, companies, businesses are going to make profit. One way or the other.
Which is where the minority comes in, whether or not businesses will be able to make profits when the special import levy sunset clause has been extended to 2028. They also talk about certain adjustments for people in the gold mining subsector of the economy and how that could constrict growth for the private sector rather. Your take on that?
Yes, so effectively, if you look at it, that would rather enhance the growth to the private sector. Why? Because, if you look at the growth of the economy, the GDP growth that we are witnessing, it's mining and quarrying that is driving the growth. Now you ask yourself, what is the employment base of this mining and quarrying? It's very, very minimal. So that means that, you may have to realign and ensure that, you position the economy to get to other businesses rather than mining and quarrying. Let me put it that way. The minister justified the reason why he thinks that we may have to increase the growth and sustainability levy. It's in the budget. If you look at the revenue measures under, paragraph 142 downwards. Clearly, it tells you that, look, if you look at the Ghanaian economy, what we get as what we called, natural resource rent, right, is about 14% to our GDP. And this natural resource rent that is 14% to our GDP, if you define the natural resource rent, is the difference between the revenue you obtain from, commodity production, and then the difference between revenue and then the cost of production of a particular commodity. And so the difference is about 14%. That is more or less a profit that goes to the mining companies. And so therefore, he thinks as a country, if we are getting only 1.5% of our GDP of this natural resource rent, is not enough. And he thinks we can raise it a bit. And that is why he proposes that we should increase, the growth and sustainability levy from, 1% to 3% to ensure that Ghana gets its fair share of, the profit that the mining companies are making. And this profit coming into the government, thing will be diverted into other areas of the economy that can propel, the private sector. Because if this, sustainability levy is raised from 1.0 to 3.0, clearly it defeats that kind of, a way of government being on the market looking for money, bringing interest rate down, and the private sector will have the opportunity to also borrow from the banks.
Indeed, Prof, there's so much to talk about, but this is all we have time for. Thank you so much for talking to us.
Now, President Mahama has asked the state investigative bodies to expedite prosecutions on some high-profile murder cases that appeared to have been stuck in present past. Speaking at the seat of government during a KATH call by the Bar Association, the president said Ghanaians are expectant of justice in such cases, hence the need for the investigated agencies to work assiduously towards a final determination.
One of the issues we're confronted with is the issue of corruption and accountability in office. And so the expectation of Ghanaians is that this government will mount a stronger fight against corruption. We're committed to the protection of human rights and investigation of significant killings or murders that have remained uninvestigated. And so I've urged the police and the investigative organizations to look more actively in cases like Ahmed Swali, and that is how come a first suspect has been arrested. We are hoping that his interrogation will lead to further arrests of people. There are several other cases like the J.B. Dankwa murder case, and we're asking that it be expedited in terms of the prosecution that is taking place and for investigations to be carried out to find out if any other persons were involved in
President John Mahama. He will take us onto Regional Hub.
Well, now, the Komfo Teaching Hospital has for the past 10 days been facing a critical disruption due to water shortage. Hospital management has confirmed that the lack of running water is severely hampering the delivery of essential healthcare services. The crisis has escalated to the point where doctors are now threatening to suspend all surgical procedures unless immediate action is taken. Ibrahim Abubakar joins us with more on the story. Ibrahim, good afternoon. Talk to us about the situation at the Komfo Teaching Hospital, which has led to a threat to suspend surgeries. Oh, it appears Ibrahim cannot hear me at the moment, but that is the situation at the Komfo Teaching Hospital, where the doctors are now threatening to suspend surgeries over there because of a lack of running water for some time now, severely hampering the delivery of essential healthcare services over there at the hospital. Let's try Ibrahim again, see if we have him now. Ibrahim Abubakar, if you can hear me, tell us a bit more about the situation at the Komfo Teaching Hospital. Oh, Ibrahim cannot hear me. We'll take a quick break. When we come back, we'll bring you more stories. Don't go away. Welcome back. You're still live here on News Central, and I'll take you across the regions again. First, in the Ashanti region, where the Komfo Teaching Hospital has for the past 10 days been facing a critical disruption due to water shortage. Hospital management has confirmed that the lack of running water is severely hampering the delivery of essential healthcare services. The crisis has escalated to the point where doctors are now threatening to suspend all surgical procedures unless immediate action is taken. We can now connect with Ibrahim Abubakar, correspondent in the Ashanti region, for a little bit more on this story. Ibrahim, talk to us about the extent of the shortage of water in at the hospital.
Well, Kemini, so since last week, Monday, till date as we speak, water has not been flowing through the taps of Komfo Teaching Hospital. And we all know how huge the facility is. A facility which takes referral from 12 out of 16 regions in Ghana. Definitely the consumption is huge. And this is a facility that conducts at least 50 surgical procedures in a day. And they have reservoirs. They have a number of reservoirs, but it's been 10 days and more and counting. And for that matter, all the water in the reservoirs have been exhausted.
Well, it seems we have lost Ibrahim there. But we can take a listen to the Director of Public Affairs at the Komfo Teaching Hospital, who spoke to Ibrahim earlier.
It's water dependent for infection prevention control purposes. And so our reservoirs were exhausted, and we tried to get supplies from private tanker operators. We spoke to Ghana National Fire Service and also spoke to KMA. They all helped us to some extent. But as I indicated, the scale of our operations and the number of people who reside in this enclave are so huge that that was the supplies or the support that we're getting. For a hospital like this to be denied of service for 10 days, I mean, it's quite unthinkable. But it's something that is beyond us. We've done the best that we can. As I indicated, we've spoken to Ghana Water Company. We're collaborating with them to get us alternative source of water. Yes, some of the surgical operations have been suspended so that we can concentrate on emergency ones. So for a permanent solution, we believe that the state will have to invest in getting us a dedicated line from the water production side so that we don't compete with people and other residential areas with the same line that Ghana Water is serving.
Ibrahim Abubakar, thank you so much for the reporting.
Now, the Awutu people are part of the larger Guan community who are believed to be the first settlers of present-day Ghana. But their indigenous language, which is the Awutu, has significantly lost its originality as a result of constant adulteration through urbanization. As part of our Ghana Man series, Akwesiado visited the area and comes through with this report.
It is an early morning, and I have come into contact with Kobi, a native of Awutu, who hails from the traditional capital, Breku. Of course, it is his first test for the day, as I task him to introduce himself in the Awutu language.
Atre me Kobi, me bo Awutu buntrasi. I love fufu. Because you have to have the fufu pan and your pepper, and yes, I'm also Kadaman. That is it.
All right, thank you, Kobe. Clearly, his grasp of the Awutu language is not so strong. But just like Kobe, most members of the younger generation of Awutu struggle to form meaningful sentences with the language without introducing foreign words. The area's close proximity to Accra makes its traditional towns such as Odupongpehe, widely known as Kasua, Odupongfako, Papase, Ojiase, Bontrase, and the traditional capital, Breku, highly susceptible to urbanization, which according to traditional authorities has been a major drive for the adulteration of the indigenous Awutu language.
Into Awutu ya se ani abenke nkla. Ne nkla da. Nkla sire onjuo. Enane Awutu o. Afo te amajutu ahwaho. Fu Awutu ya bi.
Because of our proximity to Accra, most of the people have come to settle here, making here an urban area. So, other languages like Fanti become handy, and it is not affecting just our language but our culture. The language is also not written and read in schools, so it has no standards. It causes people to adopt words that are not Awutu in our language.
Kemuyehu tembashi ne muyene ba Awutu to proje ne ebofa proje na hobe emu Awutu atale ne motale atale pokotema benke betembe mo benke nklabi mo benke hantia bi ne wontu otama ayene okuku na mwe ne na Awutu ni mo na awrato nke mo ya Awutu atale.
Bruised in form and structure, with significant vocabularies of the language being lost and risking a possible extinction, clarion calls are being made by some natives for the Awutu language to be redeemed.
Awutu
is a white area, and it is sad that we don't have the language documented. I believe we can project the language through religion. So, as a religious leader, I have already made it a point to deliver some of my sermons in the language. Already, some work has been done by the Awutu Literacy Project, an organization commissioned by the Awutu Traditional Council to develop the language into a one that can be written and read. Ronald Akwa Ahin, project coordinator for the Awutu Literacy Project, envisages that the language will be adopted and taught in schools after the committee finalizes its work.
Indeed, we are going to move on to Ghana Education Service and discuss with them to see the possibility of approving our language to be taught and to be written, read, and taught in our various schools so that we can preserve this language.
Belema Awutu atale eka te amihe eyaka kola kola nchong ewohia be ababo atale ho ban na ncherima ke atale fadi trokote aniyahe Awutu abi nsew atreme akwasi ado na mine asomo ena TV3 bo Awutu nto awuso. To it, the indigenous Awutu language is losing its originality.
Would you want to say something in Awutu?
I cannot speak the language, and
okay.
So yeah. But the
you can say something in Ebe. You know,
yeah,
let's continue.
I speak Ebe. I think I've done that before. So yeah.
So take us home in Ebe.
That's on the spot, by the way.
Miakata will be back tomorrow.
Apena Mikata, I mean, it's basic, but we're thankful that you could stay with us for the 1 hour that we've been here on News Central. I am Mawina Egbeta.
And I am Kemini Amano. Next is the afternoon show. Bye for now.